Hello folks, and welcome to the workbench. I would say that I hope you're going to enjoy this particular video, but I'm pretty sure that you're not. And I've probably brought you all here by means of a really lame clickbait title about hacking the Model 3 inverter. And the eagle-eyed Tesla-ites amongst you will realize that this is not a Model 3 inverter. Instead, this is a logic board from a front drive unit from a Model S. So what is it doing here, and what are we doing? Well, our strategy for the Model 3 inverter, because it's a one PCB design, is going to be very different from what we have done in the past, both with this small drive unit and the large drive unit boards. And you can see the progression within Tesla as they have moved towards more integration and cost cutting, that everything is kind of getting condensed and getting down into single PCBs. So whereas the large drive unit from the Model S is pretty much a plug and play board, this small one was a little bit more difficult because it had the current sensors. It needed to be desoldered and a few things like that. And now we're faced with the Model 3 that is pretty much a single PCB that has both the power stage and the control stage on one board. So we're not going to be able to just replace the brain and use the body, or so one might think. Whereas instead, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do some serious rocket surgery. Now, fun though it would be to just throw a Model 3 inverter here on the bench and start in on it, these things are just a little bit expensive. So I want to hone my skills before progressing further. Now we have some PCB designs coming down the track for you guys, but before that we need to see if the whole conceptual idea that I have is going to work. Now that's where this sacrificial board comes in. Now, one of the main differences on the Model 3 inverter is that instead of it having two DSP chips and a FPGA like the small drive unit board here, it has all of it on one TMS C2000 Delfino microcontroller, which I have to say from studying it is one impressive piece of kit. And this is from a guy that wrote programs from a 48K Spectrum back in the day, so that probably doesn't really say much. Anyway, purpose of today's video, and I'll try to chop it up into the fun-packed sections for you, is we're going to basically, this is just a scrap PCB, but we're going to try some different strategies for removing these three chips. Now, the idea here is that the Model 3 board will have some similarities to this here. The most noticeable of which will be the musk goo. This is this kind of hard conformal coating that's on top of all the main components, and on the back underneath the logic device we will have, there'll be decoupling caps and some other support components here on the back. That'll be very important for us to not mess too much with these parts because it's literally quite impossible to get at the back of the Model 3 inverter board, at least from what I have seen so far. Now, so we've got 3 shots at this, and I have a few more of these boards here, so I don't really mind, if I make a mess of these. They're basically scrap PCBs anyway. So, alright, I'm going to get set up and we will attempt number one. I think we'll have a go at pulling off the FPGA. So, alright, that's it. Let's make it happen. So this is going to be our first victim. Now, the one thing you got to keep in mind is that these chips are 14 millimeter square, whereas the C2000 is a 24 millimeter square, and it's got more pins, but everything else is pretty much the same, like the pitch and the goo and all this. So these will be pretty good analogs for what we're trying to do. Now, one strategy from back in the day that I would have used is to use a scalpel to basically cut across the part of the leg here that would have the little bit of a bulge in it. So I just cut around these, and then you get shut of the body of the device, and you can kind of work off the legs. Now, I'm not going to do that approach immediately. Now, my sense of it is, just trying to look down here, my sense of it is, and I'm just trying to get the blade in around the device, is that the goo is not only protecting the pads, but it's also holding the body of the chip down onto the PCB. I mean, if I can just attempt to work the blade in there around it, yeah, it doesn't really want to, I mean, it kind of goes in a little bit. So let's hit it with some gasket stripper and see if that wakes things up a bit. Okay, new plan. Broke out my little solder paste syringe here and decided to apply some Rust-Oleum green paint stripper. So let's come back in a bit and see if that makes any dint on the musk goo. By the way, if anyone has any other ideas that we can safely remove said musk goo, answers on a postcard. Alright, so while the paint stripper does its thing, I'm just taking the rework tool here. I have it set to 150 degrees, and I just got a componenty part of the board here. I'm just heating up the resin and just trying to scrape it just with the tip of the tweezers here. And noticing at 150 degrees, there's not a lot really happening here. It feels a little softer than, let's say, a place that's not heated, but it's still very hard. So let's go up to about 200 degrees. Okay, so it's a little over 200 degrees. I'm going to see what starts to happen here. Very, very boring stuff, but this is kind of what's important for us to understand before we start tearing into a potentially expensive Model 3 inverter, and to see if indeed this whole strategy that I've dreamed up is in any way feasible. So right now I'm just scraping around here at 200 degrees. Not really seeing much of a change in the goo at all here. It's not, softening. Well, hang up, a tiny bit softer maybe. So let's go up to 300 degrees, which is, kind of getting into the danger zone now for sure. Alright, so we're at 300 degrees. Increase the airflow a little bit. I even know that when I'm doing the current sensors here that I have to physically scrape away the goo from the current sensor solder points. But yeah, there's at 300 degrees and it's still basically, you know, it's a little softer here now, but it's still like it's no way trying to flow. Alright, so let's go to something mental. Like, let's go to 500 degrees. So it looks as if whatever type of goo that this is extremely temperature resistant, which, you know, obviously would make sense. But okay, so here we're starting to finally see something start to move. It's still, it's quite amazing, this stuff, considering the temperature I'm pouring into it here. It's only now is it becoming, yeah, there we go, finally. Only now is it becoming the point that I can scrape it off. And I've got extreme of temperature going in there. Now I can actually, now it's quite interesting that it's actually coming off quite easily now with the 500 degree temperature. It's actually readily flaking off now. Alright, so we're going to go for a straight thermal approach with a square nozzle. At 480 degrees on my rework station. I got a fair airflow going here. Might take that down a little bit. And I'm going to just see what happens. Probably won't end well, but like I did say, this is kind of partially why I want to do this with a scrap board before we finalize our plan. Now, the one thing we'd be looking out for here as well on the back of this card would be to see if we've managed to mess up any of the parts that are mounted on the rear, which is the one worry that I have for a purely thermal system. I think what I'll do is I'm going to leave the paint stripper working away on this. I'm going to get some more solvents and try them out on it as well. There's plenty of real estate on this board that we can afford to lose. We'll try some solvents and some other different methods until we find the right one that gives us, you know, the least risk of damaging the PCB. No. Oh, here we go. Wow. This is like almost too easy. Can't be this easy. So what I'm doing is I'm just sliding the blade in here as well. I'm just kind of sliding the blade a little bit in here to just so that thing's up and out. We're off. Now, the next trick will be to see if I've managed to wreck any of the pads in there. So, alright. Maybe this is not as hard as I've made it out to be in my own crazy brain. Don't mind my head for a second, guys. I'm going to go in here and see if we've killed any of the pads. Alright, so along the bottom is good. That side is also good. Oh, I'm breathing that damn paint stripper now. That's not good. We're good on the top. We're good down the left. I don't believe it. I guess, okay. Maybe the musk goo is not so much of a problem. Well, you know, we have to prove the point. Okay, so that's our Actel FPGA no longer FPGAing us. He won't be programming his gates in a field array anymore. Interestingly, we haven't really damaged anything around the device from what I can see. I'm going to just go ahead and do what I would normally do in a situation like this now, is I'm going to get some... Where's my flux gone? God damn it. Okay, found the flux. So let's throw some flux on here. Gonna go too mad because this is only a... Say this is just a play board. So this is what I would do. Get me some flux on there, and I'm going to need a soldering iron switched on, that'll be a help. So yeah, let's come back when the soldering iron's heated up. Alright, so let's see if we can just mop up some of this solder here and clean up these pads in a way that would allow us to mount an adapter PCB on here. I've not been gentle with this anyway at all. Fairly aggressive. This is just pretty much working. The reason I'm feeling resistance here is isn't the solder on these pads, it's the goo. And the heat from the soldering iron is actually breaking the goo away. Then I'm able to, or the flux can get at the pads, because this will be lead-free solder. So what I normally do now is, once I'd have all that lead-free junk out of there, time to get the lead in. So I would get me some leaded solder. Start dumping it in here. What you're seeing straight away is the solder is balling up, so it's not getting near pads, which means that our pads aren't exactly... Pads are struggling a little bit here because the goo is still hampering us. Now, we are getting rid of it, so that's good. But what I'm going to start doing now is I'm going to bring my scalpel in a little bit. I'm scraping in a single direction here. This is just me trying to clean up my pads, but this is actually working, guys. This whole approach, I think, is going to work. I mean, as I said, I have been pretty damn, like, I'm not taking care here. I'm getting stuck into this thing, and so far I haven't managed to wreck a pad, I think. It's going to get a little more heat going in here now. device. There it is. Let's get in there with some lead. Now, okay. Alright, I'm going to go clean this off and we'll see what we get. Okay, so the pretty crazy thing right now is that we've got that device off. All of the pads are intact. From what I can see, inspecting them with the magnifier, there's no shorting. The actual device itself, when I inspect that, all the legs are there. Yes, the solder has pooled around them, as you'd expect, but other than that, the device seems fine. So I think in order to prove that this thermal method works, we're going to go ahead. I've cleaned off all of the solvent. We'll go ahead and see if we can pull off this device here using the same approach as we did for this one. Now, one of the things, as I said, we want to look out for is on the back of the board for any of these decoupling caps or whatever may be here on the Model 3, and nothing has moved here at all. There's no parts fallen off, there's no parts moved off the pads, everything seems 100% fine. So, alright, we will now just go straight at this guy here. And you'll notice as well, I'm not using a vacuum pickup tool or something like that. The one I have is broken, I have a new one on the way. So I'm literally just doing this the crudest way possible. So, alright, this device here now, U5, is going to just get thermal removal procedures. We're 480 degrees centigrade on our rework tool, or whatever you want to call it, hot air tool. And yeah, let's just do it. So I'm going to do like I did before. We're using the square nozzle tip here. I'm pretty much just going to start heating it. I'm going to get in pretty tight to the device. I want to get the heat in there pretty rapidly. I think that paint stripper is definitely doing something, but it's probably would need to be left there for, I don't know, a day or something like that. But we can see other methods as well for thermal or for chemical removal, but I'll be interested to see now if I can duplicate my results here with this device just using the hot air gun. Keeping in mind, as I say, that we are using quite a bit of heat in this. Okay, so right now I can feel the goo starting to flake away. How I know that is I can get the nib of the can also see the solder. Even with the bare eye here, I can see the solder starting to give way. Putting a fair bit of pressure on this, but here we are. There we go. Okay, got the device broken loose. Just going to work the blade under it. There it is. We're off. So I'm just going to go first look. I won't bore you guys with me fluxing this and all that. I'm just going to get in here with the magnifier. I've no damaged pads on the bottom row. Got loads of solder bridges, obviously, and none on the right. All there on the top. And I'm good on the left. Even the non-connected pads are still there. There's nothing wrong. Will we go for broke and pull off the third one? I think hell yeah. Let's. Now this is a smaller device, I grant you, but the same token, it'll be just interesting to see if we have success with it. So it looks as if the Musku is, we've found its Achilles heel, folks. I'm just kind of playing with the tip of the scalpel on this here. I'm not really doing anything crazy. I think probably the scalpel pickup method is, strangely enough, probably going to be the best, because I don't think a vacuum pickup tool is going to really give me the control that I need here. So, funnily enough, there we go. I'm just under it. Working the scalpel now round. That's it. It's off. We get a quick look. Give you guys a very quick update on this. Yeah, all pads are good. So, I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting this to be more of a process of trial and error, and more error than trial. But we pretty much managed to remove these three devices from our small drive unit logic board here without damaging the board or any of the surrounding parts. Using nothing more complicated than a cheap, rework station and a scalpel. So it looks as if I can proceed ahead with my insane plan. Woohoo. Alrighty folks, so hope you've enjoyed this one. As I say, it's kind of a prequel episode where I just wanted to really start a process that has just ended to see if it would be at all feasible to remove some of the high pin count devices from a Tesla board. And the purpose of that is because when we do this live on a Model 3 inverter PCB, we're going to get one chance and one chance alone. So I want to, learn as much as I can and see if the whole thing's feasible, which it seems to be. So I'm now going to crack on and design the PCB system. It'll be a system of boards. There will be an adapter board that will be soldered directly to where the TIC 2000 microcontroller is removed, and there'll be two kind of a snap-on header system on there that our main logic PCB will then clip down onto that, and we will have Hubner control of our Model 3 inverter. So that's where we're going. Don't know if I'm going to get there. Like a lot of these things, it's all someone's got to try it, and for some weird reason it always seems to be me. So that's it. Alright, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Check links in the description for Patreon and PayPal in case you would like to financially support this or any other of the insane projects that I'm currently working on. Also, there'll be links in the description there for the openinverter.org forum, web shop, GitHub and various other things. Oh, and I finally shouldn't mention, speaking of GitHub, that of course this will be a fully open source project. So there'll be a link in the description when it finally goes live to the Model 3 GitHub page where you'll be able to download all this junk. So until then, don't do anything too crazy, and happy goo melting.